You are looking for a job abroad, you are in the right place. Welcome to Start Your International Career. In this episode, we have Abigail Meuli, who currently works as a grants officer in Barcelona in the urbanism sector and is originally from Scotland. Abby, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Abby, you are currently living the dream so many people want, living in Spain, close to the beach environment, etc. Helpful for people who want to move to Spain. Can you briefly explain what do you do in your current job and what did you study?
Yeah, of course. So, in terms of what I do in my current job, I work as a grants officer at university. So, I support academics with preparing research proposals and then managing research proposals that we've won. And I work with research proposals to do with the fields of urbanism and sustainability. So, that's to do with urban planning and cities, how we live in cities, how we make them better places to live in, more resilient, more green, more enjoyable, and better suited to the needs of all. What I studied international relations at UCL down in London, which was a great degree, very broad. So it gives you lots of options for finding a job in the future, but it also makes it challenging to narrow down exactly what you want to do. So it took me a while to get here.
All right. Good summary. Thank you. So, talking about the Spanish dream, moving to Spain, working in Spain, living by the beach, I think it's amazing, and I think it's something a lot of people from all around the world would like to have someday. My question is, was this a goal you had since long ago? How did it happen?
That's a really good question. I think I can trace it back to high school when I first started Spanish classes. I had this really fun Spanish teacher, and she was just a ball of energy and the life of the party, and we always had the best time. And I thought, oh, this is fun. I like this. Um, and so I decided that I wanted to at least go to Spain and visit for a time. And then at university, I was supposed to go for my Erasmus degree to Granada, which was cancelled because of COVID. But I decided that after my degree, I was going to go anyway. And I spent a wonderful year in Granada in the south of Spain, enjoying myself, living life to the full. And I really did fall in love with Spanish culture. I think it's true what they say that the Spanish people, you guys know how to have fun. There's a good balance, work-life balance, I'd say, and the social life is really respected and is an important part of everyday life in a way that I think it isn't maybe so much in the UK. I think that's fair to say. So that was where it all started, and then I met my current partner, who you know well, and moved to Barcelona.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. So, that first experience in Granada, you were not working yet, right? Was studying, if
Yeah,
I understood correctly.
yeah, exactly.
So,
I was actually there to learn Spanish.
uh-huh. So, after that experience, did you stay in Spain or did you go back to the UK?
So after that experience, I went back to the UK, and this was partly a visa decision. As all your British listeners will know, unfortunately, because of Brexit, we don't have the ability to work in the EU nearly as easily, which was a major change. It's like overnight, British people went from having the option to live and work in 27 EU countries to not having that right at all after the Brexit vote. So I kind of had to return to the UK, but I had the goal and the ambition to make it back to Spain. And I spent a long time figuring out different ways to get there and different visa options. And I eventually managed to get there with the help of my partner. And I have a visa which is called a pareja de hecho visa, which is because I'm in a relationship with him as a Spanish citizen, I'm entitled to live and work in Spain for up to 5 years, which can then be extended, which is fantastic.
All right. Exactly. I was interested in that part. So when you were studying, you had no issue at that time with the visa, right? Because that was before Brexit.
So when I was studying, I had a student visa, and that lasts as long as your studies. So I managed to finish the course, and that for night the visa mine. I tried in time to do different journals, something that's very difficult for a British citizen or a non-EU citizen at the beginning of their career. Typically, Spanish companies and lots of EU companies will hire someone with quite specialist skills. So it's very difficult if you're looking for your first job straight out of university and you're not an EU citizen. It's quite hard without going down a very particular route or finding a different type of visa, which is what I ended up doing.
I understand. Indeed, yeah. When you're not specialist in anything, you're fresh out of college. Normally normally companies don't hire generalists, let's say, or something. They don't hire people that they can hire locally, right? Why would hire internationally if you have it home and you don't need to handle any paperwork or something like that? So I understand
Yeah.
for you, it was really difficult to find a job at that time.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. I know there are programs though. For example, I believe you can do a master's program and then be entitled to like a job seeker's visa for up to a year. So that can give you a little bit of flexibility. You've got to work hard to find that job after university, but that gives you a little bit of leeway and time if you want to study in Spain and then get a job to be able to find one afterward. And quite a lot of British people I know also come to Spain and teach English. That's a visa that is still something that British people are able to get because there's a high demand for English teachers, especially native English teachers. So quite a few people I know have ended up working in private academies and private schools in Spain, and that's how they got their work visa.
All right. And that's like a bridge, a transition. You get your work visa, and then later on you can find something better. Yeah, something different.
Exactly.
I see. Okay, that's a good tip. So, what about your job search? How did you find your first job in Spain?
Well, that was a complicated one. When I first came to Spain, my visa was still in flux, so it hadn't been approved yet. So, I wanted to speak with companies and make myself known, but I couldn't officially work for any companies. So what I did is I decided to try and start going to events in the sector I wanted to work in, which is the urbanism and sustainable mobility sector. And I hadn't worked in that field before, and my degree was nothing to do with that. And then I was in a new country, so I thought, oh my God, why would anybody hire me, Um, so what I did is I started going to as many events as I could find related to the sector I wanted to work in. So conferences, academic events, field visits. I just started Googling on Meetup or Eventbrite, all those kind of things. And that's the way I got like my break, I suppose, into the industry. Because I feel that, writing to people on LinkedIn is really good. That's really positive. But it's very easy to forget about a message or to dismiss a message. But if you go and see someone face to face and you've made that effort and you present yourself well, people are often very taken in by that and they really respect that and they like that you made that effort and they think you could be an interesting person. And you don't have to have the most experience in the world or the best CV. I certainly didn't at that point, but just showing that you're really enthusiastic and that you care makes a big difference to people. So yeah,
I
me
love that.
specifically, yeah, I went to this conference on sustainable mobility. I spoke to this company there that I researched them beforehand and I introduced myself and then connected with them on LinkedIn and everything. A couple of weeks later, I saw a job that looked interesting. I wrote to them again, said we met at the conference and sent them my CV and they scheduled an interview. So that was a really good way to get an in and show initiative and show my enthusiasm.
That's amazing. I love that. I love the attitude because it's a really hands-on approach, saying, okay, I have the tools that everyone has. I have LinkedIn. Nothing is working out. I'm already living in the country where I want to find out, and there are these firms or these meetings, events. Why not go there? Exactly. You have nothing else to do if you say like that, right? So why not go there, meeting people, and in the end, people remember how you made them feel and not so much your CV or the message you send on a
Yeah.
social network, like you said. So if you
Yeah.
leave a good impression, you increase your chances 10 times, 100 times.
Mm,
I don't know.
definitely.
That's people, yes.
Mm.
If you can leave a good impression in person, go for it.
Exactly. I would say that also still applies online. Like, I was in the lucky position of already being in the country, but if you're not, there's a load of online events and seminars and conferences and things to join, and that can be very valuable also. Asking a question, introducing yourself. Maybe it's not exactly the same as being in person, but there's still a big impact there. So even if you're not in the country, I think that can still be a good strategy.
And what about these events? Where did you find these events? Did you have any strategy?
Ooh, no, I don't know if I did. I think that was just Googling. I think that was probably just going on to Meetup, even looking at groups to do with the sector I wanted to work in. It also was from following people on LinkedIn who were in that sector, who were in that same city or country, and seeing what they posted. And often, if you start following companies, relevant companies in the sector, then they'll be going to all the relevant events, so they'll post about it on LinkedIn. So I think probably that's the most important thing, is just keeping on the pulse of the industry that you're in, and seeing what everyone. If you look hard enough, the information's there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested to understand a bit more about the challenges, because you mentioned you had to go in person, you had to leave an impression. What were the main challenges for you to apply in a traditional way? Let's say with your CV, motivation letter, online application. Why that wasn't working out for you?
Mm. I think it's the same struggle for so many people across so many industries. I think you've probably experienced this also, is just your CV gets lost. Even if you think, oh, this job, I've got exactly the right experience, I'm the perfect candidate. A lot of times you can not hear back just because it gets lost in a wave of CVs online. So that was my biggest struggle. And then personally, breaking into the urbanism sector, I I felt that a lot of the jobs I saw out there required a degree in architecture or a degree in urban planning, and I had neither of those things. And that also, you know, I think a big hindrance was not having confidence in my own abilities to work in this sector. I'm not qualified enough. I don't have the right degrees. Therefore, I'm not the right person for these jobs. And that probably put me off applying for some things as well. So that was a big challenge. And a couple of things I did. Well, I did a course actually on finding a job in the urbanism sector. It was called a Career Compass course, and that was really good for me because it increased my confidence in being able to find the right position in this sector without necessarily having to be an architect. And I found there were loads of other people in a similar position who felt that they weren't the right, but were very intelligent and clearly were going to do a good job. And it was about being able to open my horizons and think a little bit more laterally and think, right, maybe I don't need to be an urban planner, but maybe I can work in policy and influence urban planning that way. Or what I ended up doing, work in academia and research, but on research projects to do with urban planning. So it's being a little bit creative about the types of jobs you want, I think. Um,
I love that. Yeah. Being able
yeah,
to improvise as well, right? Like having a plan, but at the same time, being able to be creative, as you said. And if something doesn't work out, okay, then I have a workaround.
exactly. Being creative and not boxing yourself in too much to a specific thing. I feel like if you're able to be flexible and you think, actually, this could be a good fit for me, then that's great. Did you find a similar thing when you first came to Switzerland?
In Switzerland, actually, it was very mm, fixed, very. I mean, I was coming from the automotive industry. So in my case, I needed to change industry for sure because there's no automotive in Switzerland. So I needed to start from scratch, basically. In Switzerland, you have watches, luxury industry, finance, and a lot of pharma. So I thought I could sell my continuous improvement, my lean manufacturing that I learned in Toyota, which is top class for this, to other industries. And this was my selling point. But I didn't box myself into one industry and one position because I knew that was not going to be possible in
Yeah,
Switzerland.
yeah, that's a really good strategy though. Having like, this is my unique selling point. This is what I can do, but I can apply that across lots of different sectors. I like that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not
And
not a background in some industry because it wasn't possible for me. I
this is
didn't know anything about pharma or watches or, or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, that makes total sense. I like that. Yeah. I think
Um,
also Sorry,
Yeah, go
interrupted.
ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think also one thing that was a challenge for me was I saw a lot of jobs and I thought, right, I should apply for this job because it's very well paid and it's got great flexibility and it would be a solid career and it would be a good decision and therefore I should apply for it. And this was back when I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And jobs, and they wouldn't fill me with passion. They wouldn't think, oh, this looks great, this looks so interesting. But I think this would be a good thing to do. This is what I should do. And it took a while for me to get over this mental barrier of actually I want to work in this sector, and maybe it's not the most highly paid job or the job with the best benefits or the most flexibility, but it's what's most fulfilling for me, and that's what's like the purpose of my job is what's most important for me as a person, and that I don't necessarily have to apply for this thing just because it's the most highly paid. So that was also, for me personally, that was a barrier and something I had to move.
I can totally understand. In the end, a job is not only money for a service, it needs to fulfill a lot of areas in your life, and you need to put all of these areas into a balance. For some people, it's playing money. So I'm just working for money. That's it. End of the conversation. But if it's not like that, maybe you value stability, working from home. Maybe you value a challenging project, like you really want to be or to learn certain skill, whatever. There are infinite reasons. So being able to take one step back as you did, I think it's super important because you need to have perspective, and especially when you are moving abroad and you are for the first time working in a new country. I always recommend for that first job in that country to use it as a transition. Don't, I mean, it's good to have goals, good to have a clear goal, something that is your dream job, whatever, perfect. Aim for it. But also be able to adapt and to use something as a okay, this is not my dream job, this is not my dream salary, whatever, but I can use that for 6 months, 1 year, and then I look for something else. But people a lot of times get stuck because waiting for the perfect opportunity, and that might take forever or never come. That's it. So while you wait for the perfect opportunity, there are 1,000 people less prepared than you with worse English, with worse everything, that are taking this transition, and in 2 years they are in your dream job just because you didn't take any step.
Yeah, I totally agree. If you're taking steps in the right direction, that all adds up to where you want to go. And I think the
Exactly.
perfect job also doesn't, there's no perfect job.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
myth.
a good one. Yeah, philosophical conversation. Maybe for the next interview. Talking about the requirements to get a job, I think something important for the people listening is Spanish.
Yeah.
You knew Spanish beforehand, right? I understand you were already fluent by the time you were looking for a job. Would you say having a fluent Spanish is mandatory to get a job in Spain?
I think it depends where you're looking. I live in Barcelona. I wouldn't say Spanish is mandatory to apply and get a job in Barcelona. I think once you're here, it, you should definitely learn Spanish at least. But I think Barcelona is fairly unique in that case. In that sense, I would say if you're looking to get a job in Madrid, Spanish is necessary, and most, if not all, other cities in Spain. I know also in Malaga, there's quite a large tech hub there. And I think there would maybe some opportunities there where you could be an English speaker and get in, especially in tech companies. But most, if not all, will require Spanish. So I'd say if you don't know any Spanish at all, I'd aim for Barcelona as your first bet. But most companies will require at least a B2 level of Spanish. So I definitely recommend that. Recommend learning as soon as you can.
Okay, I see. And regarding the visa, in your case, you needed a visa. You were able to get this visa through your relationship. I'm still interested to understand a bit more about this process, about getting the visa and being legally able to work in Spain, because you said you were struggling a lot because the papers didn't come, basically. You were able to work, but not legally because the paperwork were not signed, right? If I understand correctly.
Yeah, I mean, legally, I couldn't work. Yeah, so the visa I have, as I said, is a pareja de hecho visa. And again, this visa, it differs greatly depending on where you live in Spain. So in Barcelona, essentially the only requirement is that you must be registered and live at the same address as your partner, and that that partner must be a Spanish or EU citizen. But if you live somewhere like Madrid, you have to have been living with your partner for at least 12 months before you can apply for the visa, which changes things completely because how are you going to live together in Spain for 12 months if you don't have a visa? So I would say Barcelona is one of the easiest places in Spain to get this particular type of visa.
You
And
can get it. Sorry to interrupt you. You said
yeah,
if your partner is a UE citizen, it doesn't
yeah,
need to be Spanish.
they can be an EU citizen, exactly.
Ah, okay. So, for example, if your partner gets a job in Barcelona, you can also get a visa to work in Barcelona
Yeah,
if your partner is European.
yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
So it's quite,
I think that's an interesting
it's a good deal.
point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. It's definitely a good
Okay.
point. And then the requirements for getting the visa itself is simple enough, although there are some income requirements, which I'm afraid I can't remember off the top of my head, but those are easily Googleable. And then the rest is just standard identification document. I would recommend a lawyer to help you through the process, not because it's necessarily complicated, but because it's something that takes a lot of time, and things like appointments take a lot of time, and these lawyers have an access route to get these appointments more quickly and submit the documents more quickly. So I think for the whole process, it cost about 500 euros for me, but I would definitely recommend that because I think it saved maybe 2-3 months of time of waiting for the just having that lawyer to submit the documents on our behalf and through a specific online portal that they have access to.
Uh-huh. Now I'm remembering something you told me about these appointments that you were trying to get at the government's website, and you were not able to do that because the site is blocked, like daily blocked. It opens and it crashes down. And
Yeah.
you told me there is some contact to get you this appointment, something like that. Can you please elaborate on that? Because I think this will be interesting for the people
Yeah,
listening.
of course. So in Spain, getting appointments to, for example, go to the police station and pick up your ID card or go to the immigration office is very, very complicated. There's an online portal. And as you said, the appointments are out every day. You log on, there's no appointment. So no one really knows how to get appointments. There are a couple of ways which are not strictly legal, but I had a WhatsApp bot, and this WhatsApp bot it sends you an automated message when new appointments get released. So you can receive that message and immediately go on to the portal and sign up for an appointment. That was the easiest way for me, but I know that a lot of other people pay someone to be able to get an appointment for them. There's a tiny bit of a mafia going on with the Spanish appointment system, I think. So it's really hard to manage, and it's something that really needs to be fixed because if you don't have the best online tech skills or you don't have the right contacts, then I don't understand how you're ever supposed to get and become a, legal resident of Spain. So it's really a big barrier.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I mean, what you just said about someone that you pay and gets the date for you, gets you a time slot. That's basically someone in the administration, in the government, acting as a bottleneck and just letting people pass by if they pay. That's straight corruption in the government.
Yeah,
So I hope this episode is listened by someone in the government and they open an investigation and this person gets fired.
me
Because
too, me too.
ones in Spain, I mean, they are not famous for being very diligent and very efficient, but that's too much. Then we close this speak regarding the visa, and we go which is Spain. Which were the main differences of working in Spain versus working in Scotland for you?
Working in Spain versus working in Scotland. That's a good question. I think it's a little difficult as I only had one job in the UK before I moved to Spain. So I don't want to make massive generalizations here. I think maybe in the UK, certain types of flexible working patterns are more accepted than they are in Spain. So maybe that means working a 4-day week or working flexible hours or working remotely. I think that's something that's more normalized in the UK and is just part of a lot of companies, whereas in Spain it's maybe more traditional. So I remember being like intensely shocked when I learned in my first company in Spain that I had to take 3 weeks of holiday in August. That was sort of just unbelievable for me because in the UK that I could not imagine that happening unless you're a teacher, obviously. So there's definitely a lot of rules and things that I think are a little antiquated in Spain that live on to this day. So that's maybe a more negative. But otherwise, in my current job, I have a really positive experience working in Spain, and also working in Barcelona. I work in a very international company, and that's something that I really value is working with people from all over the world and getting their perspectives and their experience, and that bring a lot of value and means I learn so much more than if I was working maybe in a company in Glasgow and working with just Scottish people or, somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. Working in international environments is it's the real benefit of diversity. You see that the international environments, everyone has great stories, everyone has a different way of solving problems like you could not even imagine. And it's only because it's coming from a different background, has been in touch with different people, different cultures, and it's super enriching
Yeah,
this kind of environments.
definitely.
And yeah, August in Spain, it's a hard one. Yeah, a lot of companies stop, and you are forced to take your holidays during the company stop. It's not for all companies, of course, but it's a common practice. Let's say for some companies to take one off in August, and everyone needs to take them as well.
Mm,
Not everyone, yeah, it's a majority. Thank
yeah.
you for sharing that. Then, regarding skills, would you say there was something specific, like any specific skill that helped you stand out in the Spanish market, or something that is in high demand in Spain?
Hmm. I think English helps a lot, actually. Uh, Ironically, and I mean, obviously, having a good level of Spanish, absolutely, but then being able to speak well and being a native speaker, a high level of English is a really added brings a lot of value. Not everyone in Spain speaks English. In Barcelona, most people do, but in other places not. And but of course, in the EU, the language of communication between everyone is English. So having someone that's clear, that's able to understand everything, that can write communications or reports or proofread is actually a really important thing and an added value. And I think that's a big part of the reason why I got my first job in Barcelona, very ironically, because I was a native English speaker. So you don't need to be native, but a good level definitely helps.
All right. Clear. And now more specific about your industry. What would you say is more important, having certifications or experience?
Experience. Well, hmm, depends exactly what you want to do in industry. If you want to be an urban planner, certificates. You need to be an architect. But if not, then it's definitely all about it's all about your enthusiasm and the things you've tried. And as you were saying, it's about other types of roles that then you can apply to this role. My very first job was in financial consulting, which seems to not have anything to do with urbanism, but a lot of the skills I learned there and stakeholder management and that all applies and is very relevant being able to work in the urbanism sector and the academia sector. So that all into the pot of being able to get me this job. So I definitely say experience helps. I also think that showing your interest in the sector itself um, is a really big positive. And that's something I'm trying to start doing now. Like I started writing a blog about urbanism, which isn't It's not the best blog ever written. I don't publish as often as I should, but it's just a way to show, look, I really care about this. I'm really interested in it. Here's a bit of proof about that. Here's how I think and how I write and my ideas about life. And I think that's something that's very valuable and means a lot to
Absolutely.
people.
Yeah, and it's a great way to stand out from the average, let's say. I think not a lot of people have a blog talking about something they like, where, as you said, you can see how I think, how I visualize, in your case, urbanism. That's a great highlight of you that you cannot put on your resume. You need to go check out my blog.
Yeah.
So if you're comfortable with it, we can leave your blog here.
Yeah. 270kilometers.com. Go check it out.
Super. Great. And we keep talking about your sector, your industry. What advice would you have for someone in your industry who wants to find a job abroad?
I think the first thing you need to do is research really well the companies and universities and research centers that work on urbanism in the city that you want to work in. And that's usually quite easy. Even the LinkedIn algorithms will help you. You know, you start following one company in the sector, they'll recommend you a bunch of others. Just follow them all and get a good overall understanding of what kind of background the people who are working in these companies have, where they're from. Are they all local? Is there a mixture of local and international? Are they all architects, or is there a mixture of architects and social scientists and different types of people from different backgrounds? And that will start guiding you towards the type of company you might be able to think about applying. And then I definitely say, you know, if you're not able to be in the, then reaching out to on LinkedIn is a positive step, even though it's not maybe going to always work, but it's definitely a positive step. And seeing who are interested in having a chat and just asking them about how they find their job, not necessarily asking them to get you a job, but just asking about experience in the sector and how they managed to get into it themselves, and that will help guide you, I think, a little bit.
That's a great tip, and I fully agree with that. The best way to learn how to do something is asking people that have already done that. So if you see on LinkedIn someone with the job role that you want in the country that you want and in the company that you want, go ask. Like, be blunt. Hey, tell me your story. How did you get this job? Maybe
Yeah,
they don't reply, but if they reply to you and give you two, three useful tips, that's it.
definitely,
That's it.
definitely.
It
Yeah,
is the
you've
best
not got
information
anything
that
to
you can have.
lose. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
I love that. Okay, so that would be advice. And then, do you have any specific tips for people looking for a job in Spain? Like any platforms they would need to search, or any CV format, any strategy to apply?
Mm, It's a good question. I think always be ready with your CV in both languages. I think a mistake I made early on, which sounds so lazy now, but was not being ready with my CV in Spanish, like the latest updated version. And then I see a job and I see that the job advert's written in Spanish, and I say, oh God, now I have to redo my CV. But I think it's, you know, you have to adapt to the country you're moving to. You need to recognize the language of that country, of course. And if you speak Spanish, then you need to be prepared to have everything ready to go in that language. So I think that's a tip. And then in terms of where to apply, I think in Spain, as with a lot of countries, references and word of mouth is very and maybe will get you faster than just kind of applying cold on LinkedIn. So if you have a network, of course, use your network. And then just the things that we've been talking about before, reach out to people, ask them how they're getting on, how they found this, ask them for a coffee, and then maybe get to the stage where to offer you or you with an application. So I think it's maybe more general advice than Spanish specific, but even so, I think it definitely applies.
Thank you. What about salary? What can people expect in terms of salary for 2 to 3 year experience in the urbanism sector when they move to Spain?
Hmm. You're not going to get rich, so don't expect that. I think an average salary of 2 to 3 years in Spain depends a lot, maybe around 32,000. And then that could range from something like 28,000 to around 45,000 for someone with 2 3 years experience. So it's not a huge salary, that's for sure. But it obviously depends on the city you live in as how far that will stretch.
Yeah. And also depends on your priorities, as we were saying before, right? If your dream is to live in Spain, I mean, don't expect to get rich with your Spanish salary. Like living
Exactly.
in Spain is already the price.
That's the price you pay for being here.
All right. Thanks for sharing that. And regarding life in Spain, was it difficult for you to integrate and rebuild your social life? How did you manage?
Yeah, it was definitely difficult. It's something that I took a long time and I think I still am working on. So I think because I came here with a partner, it's you've got someone and that's fantastic. So that's like a really good foundational aspect. But then in terms of finding friends, what I did was I went on Meetup and I started joining groups that were kind of my interest. So I really like running. So I joined a running group and that's where I've found a lot of my friends is through these specific activities and then also through work. But it definitely takes time. And I think one thing that's really important is recognizing that adult friendships don't necessarily look the same as high school friendships or university friendships. That, you know, a lot of people in Barcelona stay for a couple of years and then they go. But that's okay. You can be friends with someone for a year and it can still be a meaningful friendship. It doesn't mean it has to necessarily last the rest of your life or you have to speak with them every week. It still had meaning. It was still important. And that's, I think, an important lesson I've learned being here is, about different types of friendship. And also that maybe I have a friend and I go for a run with them, but that's it. I just see them for that specific thing. And then I have another friend and I only see them to go for drinks. And they can be quite specific and specialized. And it's not like a massive group of friends as you might have at university or school, but it's still nice. So it's something that I'm still working on, but bit by bit. And I'd say just put yourself out there, try all these different groups, and most people are in a similar position. Like most immigrants are trying to find friends. So I know it feels scary to like ask someone to go and do something. It feels like asking someone on a date. Asking someone to do something for the first time as a friend is like asking someone on a date. It's horrible, but they're just going to feel flattered. They're just going to be flattered you thought of them. So don't worry.
I love your point of view. And I think I couldn't have said it better. It's really like that. Like you shouldn't expect from adult friendships the same as you would have in a child friendship. It's completely different, and it's completely fine to have a friendship for 1 year and only for running or only for coffee. Yeah, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
I love that. Yes, I won't add any point because you said it perfectly. Thank you. Mm, Now we talk about the best and the worst of Spain. If you could only choose one good thing and one bad thing, what would you say?
The best. I'm gonna go a bit more specific. I'm gonna go for Barcelona itself. I really love the city of Barcelona. At first, when I moved here, I didn't like it at all, actually, but it's really grown on me, and it's a really interesting city. It's very young. It's very diverse. It's very sporty. I'm a sporty person, and there's always all these people running and doing surfing and gymnastics and whatever else you can think of. And that just gives such a fantastic atmosphere to the place. So I love the vibe of Barcelona. That's the best thing. And then the worst thing is maybe what Spain is missing for me is I miss my family. I think that applies to anyone who moves abroad is it's tough being away from your family. And even though, I'm relatively lucky, it's only a short flight away to Scotland, I still feel that distance quite a lot. And yeah, that's one of the challenges of moving abroad, and it's never going to change. But there's ways to work through it.
Yeah, I understand. So, if there was something you would like to know when you started, what would you have liked to know?
Do you mean in moving to Spain? Or
Yeah, before moving. Yeah, before moving, before finding a job. Like, what's something you say, I wish I knew this before I started?
oh, that's a really good question. It's quite a tough one. I feel it all comes from experience. I'm gonna go quite specific again with Barcelona. I was very naive in terms of language in Barcelona because in Barcelona we're in Catalonia and Catalan is an important part of Catalonia. And I didn't realize that at all before moving here, which seems ironic now. And I didn't realize that that was something that most all Catalans speak on a daily basis. It's their mother tongue. So I would just say, as a general point, do your research on the culture that you're moving to. Just also as a way of showing respect, I think it's important to know where you're going and know the cultural context of that specific place and the city in that country. You may think you know what the country's about. I thought I did because I lived in the south of Spain, but moving to Barcelona, it was totally different. So I think
Yes.
that's a good point.
Okay, good point. And if you had someone that is still doubting about moving abroad, what would you say?
I'd say you have to just try it. I think if you're thinking about it, but you're doubting, you're going to be thinking about it for the rest of your life unless you do it. And just because you move abroad, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to live abroad for the rest of your life. But
Yeah.
giving something a go for a couple of years, even, can, it'll be really beneficial. And even if the only thing it teaches you is that you love your hometown and you never want to leave, well, that's a good lesson. And at least you tried it. So I think everyone should
So
give it a go.
that's a good point of view. Yeah. Either either way, you're going to learn something.
Exactly.
I like that. All right, that's great. Then to finish the interview, I have three quick questions that also need three short answers. The first one is your favorite local food.
I'm going to go with calçot. That is a Catalan delicacy. They are spring onions with a yummy sauce, and you have them with barbecue in the spring. They're amazing.
Wow. I've never tried them myself, and I'm Spanish. Still in the bucket list. I must do.
You should.
Um, then one book that you recommend. It doesn't need to be job related. It can be any topic.
Yeah, this is not job related at all. It's called The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov, who's a Soviet era novelist. I read to escape my day to day life, and this is a fantastic book on magical realism and philosophy and power and the devil, and it's loads of fun. So if you fancy a fun read, you should read that book.
Wow, sounds interesting. We'll leave it in the description.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the last one is the best advice that you have ever received.
This is tricky. It's great advice. It doesn't mean I apply it. But I think for me personally, be more direct. It's okay to be direct and ask for what you want, and it doesn't make you a bad person or a greedy person. I think that I tend not to do that, and maybe women in general tend not to be as direct as they maybe should be. And that's something that I really need to work on, and it's great advice that I've received. I'm just struggling to put it into practice, but I'll get there.
Okay. Be clear on what you want, right?
Exactly.
Okay. That was clear. Thank you very much, Abby. It was a great interview, full of tips for people who want to live the Spanish dream. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for having me.